Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Boran Zaza, and I'm the Director of Communications and Development at Orchestras Canada, Orchestre Canada. Before I begin, I'd like to point out that Orchestras Canada is a virtual organization. This means that we work from wherever we live. My office is in Rimouski, Quebec, a beautiful city located in the Bas-Saint-Laurent region, just on the border of the Gaspé Peninsula. These regions lie on the unceded traditional lands of the Wollastogiig, Wasbeguk, and Mi'kmaq First Nations. Today's session will be recorded and be made available on Orchestras Canada's website soon. We're using the chat box to capture questions and comments on the presentation today. But enough from me. I'd now like to introduce Eric Nilsson, the Vice President of Global Partnerships at TRG Arts. We've collaborated with Eric quite a few times already as a valued webinar presenter and featured guest in our 2023 National Conference in Hamilton. Today, Eric will be sharing the latest insights from the Arts and Culture Benchmark, an ongoing international data set that reveals the current state of arts and culture organizations in Canada, the United States, and around the world. A growing number of Canadian orchestras are now taking part, but there's room for more. I will now pass the mic to our esteemed guest, Eric Nilsson. Eric, over to you.
Excellent, Boran. Thank you so much. And thank you to Orchestras Canada. And thank you for everyone who's joining the webinar today for inviting me to your table to share some of these insights. I so appreciate it and value the discussion that we get to have on this ongoing basis. And I'm calling in from the Upper West Side of Manhattan, New York City today on the ancestral lands of the Lenape. I offer honor and respect. And again, thank you all for having me. And I'm just going to jump into things with our PowerPoint as we look back at 2024. And I'm going to say, even though we're weeks into it, Happy New Year to everyone. And we're in that look back on 2024. We're also going to look ahead into 2025 and think about some inspirations for us as we continue to try to find the best and right ways to engage our customers and donors in even more connectivity with us as arts and cultural organizations. So we are going to take this leap with a look back from 24 into 25. And actually to help us think about not just this webinar, but the future webinars that we'll be doing around this data set, one question for you all to think about during the webinar is, what is one challenge you're hoping to address with the insights that are shared? You could also frame it in, gosh, that we're facing this challenge and issue, and I wish we knew X, Y, and Z piece of data or information. Knowing this helps us inform the conversation we're having today and helps us be mindful and thoughtful with your feedback about how else we can frame and put spotlights on data points to be helpful to you all. We can't bring every data piece to the table, but knowing what's important to you can help us think about, oh, what we have, what if we put it in this light? So share that in the chat or in the Q&A throughout the discussion today. Really appreciate all of your feedback is so valuable and helpful. So our agenda, we've said hello, Happy New Year, happy almost Valentine's Day. We'll look forward ahead that way and think about data for 2024 to inspire us moving forward, and then have some time for questions and conversations. For those of you who may be meeting TRG for the first time, just to give a quick primer on who we are, we partner with performing and visual arts organizations of all shapes and sizes to essentially close revenue gaps and generate more participation from customers and patrons. So we help organizations build relationships that in turn leads to financial stability and new frameworks for you to use in those ways of organizing and reaching out to your patrons. And it helps build not just your internal teams of your people, but people to us is also your customers and donors. So how do you create team and connection both internally and externally with your communities? So we do that work in collaboration, in consulting style projects and partnerships with arts and cultural organizations. And we are home of the Arts and Culture Benchmark, which Boran talked a little bit about on the front end of our welcome, but it is a data set. It's actually the largest data set of arts consumption in the world. We're going to be looking at some views into this data set around single tickets, subscription behavior, annual fund participation from customers in the lenses of North America and in the lenses writ large of North America, different types of performing arts organizations, symphonies, dance companies, theaters, performing arts centers, as well as drilling down into what that data looks like with orchestras specifically. So within that data set, there are 47 orchestras in North America. As Boran mentioned, we're getting more Canadian orchestras in every day. So more that we can build into that helps develop this data set and get us even more pinpointed with learnings, not just by sector, but also regionally as well. So let's start with, I'm wearing red today to celebrate the holidays and Valentine's Day, but let's start with holiday. What happened is, for some of you who've been in these calls over the last year and a half or so, we've looked at the strength of top line, big name programming, and holiday has played a role in our recovery in really effective ways. And it wouldn't be a TRG presentation about holiday if we didn't acknowledge the role that Mariah Carey has played in centering us around holidays. And I say this with a little bit of jest, but she has escalated the start of the holiday season, and we've seen correlations between that in our ticket sales. So people buying earlier once November starts, we see this jump start. And what happened with holidays for orchestra concerts in 2024 was interesting. In the US, there was one less week of distance between US Thanksgiving and Christmas. So there were, writ large in North America, when we add that all up together, less possible performance dates. But even with that taken into account, and for this data, we looked at things like holiday pops, Christmas spectaculars, messiahs, things in the orchestral world that fall under that holiday, Christmas holiday programming. We still saw growth happening. So a couple of framings around this slide. The green bar represents the average number of units per performance, going back from 2021 up to 2024. The black rectangle near the bottom of the screen is the number of performances that took place that we tracked. And then at the top, you see that purple rectangle, and that's the average revenue per performance. So even though you see between 2023 and 2024 that there was a decrease in the number of performances, 271 to 250, we still saw increases. Performance and 19% increase in average revenue per performance. So holiday is still leading the charge. And even with the fewer number of performances, revenue in orchestras total for holiday was up 9% and units were up 1% collectively when you compare 2023 to 2024. So some strength there. We also like comparative data. So the other sector that we look at in the benchmark that has a strong holiday presence is theaters, so Christmas carols. So similar data points that we're looking at and understanding what happened with the Christmas carol market compared to the holiday pops Christmas spectacular market. Similar things, a little different, less performances, so that one less week essentially of possibility led to 23% fewer performances. But even with that, still more people per performance coming, 382 to 392, and increase in revenue, 19,000 per performance up to 21,000. So it does not look like the speed of the holiday train. That's my bringing in the Polar Express to keep the metaphor going. It does not seem like it's losing any steam. So still holiday is a strong contender and deliverer for us. Really interesting to think about. And putting just a fine point on it around per capita revenue or average ticket price, US orchestra holiday. So we have this on the US side. coming in a little higher, 9% increase in per capita revenue, 23 to 24. And on the theater side, a 3% increase in per capita revenue, $52 to 53. So still some strength there as well. Okay, so holiday is still delivering for us. Let's look at a wider view for a moment. So what's going on in the performing arts sector writ large in North America? So we're going to go through the different revenue streams. So let's start with single ticket behavior. And if we look at how 2024 performed compared to 2019, so pre-pandemic to the year we just wrapped up, an interesting thing going on here across our four genres that we're tracking in the benchmark: orchestras, PACs are performing arts centers, dance, opera, we collect those two together mainly because of the quantity of organizations that we have in the benchmark around that, and theaters. But we see, and this trend has been going on for the last 2 years, continued growth in single ticket revenue compared back to 2019. So that strength is continuing to grow. So exciting to see that happen. Looking at per capita revenue or average paid price, this is a question we keep getting asked over and over again is, well, is there price sensitivity? Should we be mindful of that? We should always be mindful of ticket prices and offering a wide range of prices so that people at different stages of commitment, people at different stages of their economic abilities, all feel like they can find a place within our halls and venues. And we shouldn't feel held back by price sensitivity in certain ways. So how do we understand that? Well, we look at per capita revenue, which is the average paid amount per performance. So one way you figure it out, the way you figure it out is, let's say you sold $100 in ticket revenue and you sold 10 tickets. So you divide 100 by 10, and that's your per capita revenue. So this is comparing 2024 to 2019. The per capita revenue for 2024 is in the green bar. The per capita revenue for 2019 is in the purple bar. And what do we see here across the board in each of our genres? Per capita revenue is outpacing, or it did outpace in 2024 versus 2019. Really interesting. It doesn't feel like there is perhaps price sensitivity going on, but let's put it through the lens. So when we bring this up, the other question we often get asked is, can we understand that through inflation? Because inflation has been going up, the cost of things has been going up. So how do we understand that context? So I'm going to put this in through the view lens of US inflation. So let's see per capita revenue across all four of these genres. Pre-pandemic, it was $41, and we add that all up. Post-pandemic, $53. So $41 in 2024 US dollars is $50.31. So our post-pandemic per cap is up higher. So as our cost of running our businesses go up, one thing we want to make sure is our revenue not only growing, but is it helping to stay ahead of inflation so we're not losing ground? And luckily, we see that trend happen here across our sector. What's going on with orchestras? Orchestra per capita revenue pre-pandemic, $37.30. Post-pandemic, $47.61. $37.30 in put through the calculator of inflation is $45.77. So we're also staying ahead here as well. So that is that provides some not just knowledge about price sensitivity, but the health of how we're bringing in enough revenue to keep that pace going. Okay, so that was single tickets. Let's look at subscription behavior. And we've actually modified this, our headline here, to be subscription and membership, transactional membership, because many of you, many folks in the sector are expanding the definition and your offerings of what your loyalty packages are. So it's not just seated subscription, but memberships and choose your owns and all kinds of stuff that all falls under this category. So we've, based on feedback from you all, like I asked at the beginning to put in the chat, we're growing and refining the data points we're presenting based on feedback. And this is super exciting to see. So across all four genres, in 2024 was the first year as a complete year that subscription membership revenue, was higher than 2019 across the board. So you see growth in all these different categories. Very exciting to see. We've crossed a bridge, which is really nice. So what's driving this resurgence? We also think about things like per capita revenue. In this case, for subscriptions membership, we look at per unit per cap. So if you have, let's use that $100 example again, you have a subscription that costs $100 and you get 10 tickets within that subscription, your per unit per cap is $10 for each of the 10 within that package. So across North American performing arts organizations, all those genres added up together, the per unit per cap is up 24% from pre-pandemic, 2024 versus 2019. In the per unit per cap in 2019, $53, 2024, $65. So adjusted for inflation, are we keeping pace? That $53 is actually $65.03 in 2024 dollars. So we're just staying at pace with inflation costs. So again, across the board with performing arts organizations. Let's look at this for North American orchestras. Comparatively, it's up 27%, $64 versus 50, and $50 in 2019 is actually $61.35 in 2024 dollars. So orchestras are actually staying a little farther ahead of the inflation than the sector writ large. So interesting data point to think about the strength that you're building by staying ahead that way, not just in singles, but also in subscriptions and memberships as well. Okay, so what's going on in our third key revenue stream, which is donation revenue. So this is, if you joined us in November when we looked at this data most recently, it was pretty similar to this. And this trend has been going on for the last couple of years, which is that unlike single tickets and subscription revenue, donation revenue has been tracking behind and consistently behind pre-pandemic, with the exception, look at that, with performing arts centers, up 39%. So it actually happened at the end of 2023 and has happened again in 2024, which is that performing arts centers had a really strong end of calendar year. So their December end of year giving outpaced everybody else and helped lift them up ahead of where they were in 2019. So really interesting, something to think about, those key moments in your calendar year, end of fiscal year, end of calendar year, subscription add-on times, those moments when it really resonates with your customers and donors and community of the ask of or the invitation to ask them to give. Are we maximizing that? And are we asking in all of the right ways? And I've got a fine point around this regarding average gift size. And then in a few slides, we're going to get into the month by month data so you can see some of this related to key moments in your calendars. But this is average gift revenue. It's sort of this version of per capita revenue, but on the giving side. Same structure to the chart. The pre-pandemic is in the purple, the post-pandemic is in the green. And interestingly, when we looked at the single tickets, the greens were all outpacing the purples across the board. Here, the only one that is ahead is performing arts centers. So not only do they have a good December, end of calendar year, but they're actually finding a way as a genre to bring up higher average gift amounts and outpacing pre-pandemic. So, the thoughtfulness around how much are we asking people to give? Are we pointing them in the right directions of suggested giving amounts? Are we maximizing that? It'd be an interesting question for you all to think back with your organizations of where are we at? And are we making the right asks because of looking at this lift that performing arts centers have achieved? So thinking about this through the lens of inflation. So across all these genres, pre-pandemic average gift, $1,900. That's worth 24.33 in 2024 dollars. Yet in 2024, our average gift is just 16.10. So our yield is actually down $823. So that could be, like I just said, perhaps we're not pointing people uh, quickly or effectively enough to giving amounts that they should be thinking about. The other piece of the puzzle that absolutely is happening is our pipeline. So, givers, people who give, the strongest givers and the people who have the highest continuation of giving and highest lifetime value started out as single ticket buyers, and then they become multi-buyers, and then maybe subscribers, or they just add on more tickets. But the more they get to know you, the more likely they are to become a donor. So, we were closed down during the pandemic, so we had to rebuild that early and mid part of the pipeline. So we are just getting back to having more people at those later stages. So perhaps we need more volume at the multi-buyer rate to then set us up for a success more effectively with donation.
Eric,
So
this is
yeah,
Boran. I'm just going to
yeah,
interrupt you for a second because we have an interesting question in the chat from Sarah
yeah.
Bullock. She's asking, why are orchestras doing worse than opera and dance?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. So I'm going to bring up this one. One other is this thinking about the average gift size. So pre-pandemic, orchestras 2,272. That's worth $2,787 in 2024. And post-pandemic, we're actually getting 1,500. So that gift yield down $1,200. So think about average for the sector down 823, but orchestras are actually down 1,206. So that's one area I would lean into is so there are, some of you maybe heard me talk about this before. There's a book I read many years ago called Choice, which was all about the psychology behind why people buy and give at the rates that they do. And one of the takeaways of the book was that people want the perception of choice, but they kind of want to be told what to do. So what they really mean by that is people need to be led in directions. So when you think about um, areas you have of growing giving, subscription add-on gifts, we see lots of success with people not only asking for people to add on gifts with their subscription, but actually putting a suggested dollar amount in that donation ask piece. Or at the end of fiscal or end of calendar year, actually framing for people to say, we're asking you to give before the end of the year. The mission is important. Your collaboration with us is important. And a gift of X, Y, and Z size uh, helps to lead this kind of impact. So it's a question for you all with your organizations. How are you making those suggestions? And, your patrons are savvy, so you can't just put any dollar amount there. Like, how do they see themselves in that? Meaning, if they give at that rate, how does that help them see how they're making impact? Does that impact align with their value systems? So it's not just about asking for a specific dollar, but how you not only frame that dollar within something that's going to resonate with them. I think that might be the reason, one of the reasons here, looking about how different these gift yields are. That's playing a role in driving why orchestras are lower down in that piece of the puzzle. It could also be, and we're going to get to this in a second around the month by month stuff, is, we're really good in the orchestra sector because we have so many concerts at getting first timers in the door. Are we getting enough multi-buyers that then feed that pipeline for further subscription? So I hope that was helpful. I'm going to keep moving, but those are a couple areas to think about. Are we asking in the right ways and framing it correctly? Do we have enough multi-buyers within our databases?
Thank you for that, Eric. And we do have actually another question. Would
Yeah.
pipeline also include demographics? Older patrons currently give more than younger ones. We need to develop the next generation of donors.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle is to understand what's your mix. So if you haven't done a demographic study, it's really important to do that, to look at how your mix is coming in. And that point around younger audiences we see in the data, do they still give, But the message around investment is much more important to them and having an understanding of how their dollars will take shape at your organization and how they can feel collaborative about how that gets reported back. So even saying things like, Boran, because of your $500 gift, we were able to do X, Y, and Z, and being um, clear and direct with the way you show how it could make an impact and thanking them back for impact. We see that's much more important to younger audiences. So making sure you've got those kind of messages that resonate with folks that way. Okay, I'll pause for a second more unless we can dive into clarity on that, or I will keep moving.
Yeah, those are all the questions we have for the moment. Thank you.
Okay, great. Oh, excellent. Thank you for bringing this up, and thank you for asking those. I so appreciate this collaboration, the discussion here around that. Okay, so let's dive into some more of the depths of ticket sales. We'll start with single tickets. So single tickets 2019 versus 2024, North American Performing Arts Organization. So we looked at revenue first. So revenue up 22% across the board, but units down 5. So this actually plays into this development discussion or donor discussion that we have. While revenue is up, we have less people coming in writ large. So that when we have fewer people, that means we probably are getting less people then to become multi-buyers and then moving down or moving through that pipeline in all of those ways. So it's important to not just pay attention to revenue. We start there because that's, is the driver of investment for organizations, but units are as important and actually even more important because that's what's filling your pipeline. Really successful revenue can sometimes mask, any cracks in the unit piece if we're not looking at it. So we need to pay attention to both. So this is comparatively to put some numbers around what those percentages actually are being driven from. On the orchestra side, actually a little more strength, both on the revenue, 22% for the sector, 27% for orchestras in North America, and units only down 1%. So that's an interesting question. We're seeing lower yields or lower gift sizes in orchestras versus the sector writ large, but we're not having as much of a problem. There's still a problem, but not as much with units. So first timers and moving them through, are we tracking that? Are we paying attention to that and creating that multi-buyer behavior? So this is how that data looks for those comparison points. Okay, so you heard me talk about we would look at month by month to see if there'd be any ahas or learnings here. So this is sector wide, and we're looking at 2019 versus 2024. And to put some context around this slide, pre-COVID units, number of tickets sold month by month for singles is in the purple. Post-COVID 2024 is in the green bar. The yellow line is month by month single ticket pre-COVID revenue. And the blue line is month by month post-COVID 2024 single ticket revenue. So we're looking for where green outpaces purple and where blue outpaces yellow. So blue almost consistently across the year has been outpacing yellow. And then where green outpaces purple has been a little up and down with the exception of looking at the end of the year. We sort of turned a corner, October, November, and December, perhaps because of those holiday ticket sales strength. We're a little bit ahead, or the beginning of our opening of our seasons, some strength there also. If we look at this for just orchestras, same thing, where green is outpacing purple and where blue is outpacing yellow. So actually a little more strength around single ticket unit sales in the spring of last year. So March, April, May. This could be related to add-on tickets when we put subscriptions on sale. So that's a piece of the puzzle. And then also had some good strength, from September on with units. November was neck and neck, but better than being behind. And then the blue line pretty consistently all year long revenue has been ahead, with the exception of a little bit of softening in November. But this speaks to continuous strength and some interesting timelines, like our spring when we are People are getting out of their homes again after winter and feeling comfortable going out again. Some strength there, and then some muscle around end of calendar year as well. The other question I get asked a lot is, well, Eric, how do we deal with the fact that people are buying later and later? We've looked at this trend a couple of times in these. We didn't look at it the last one, but thought it was worth revisiting because we're seeing some interesting ahas going on. So, people are late for the very important date of coming into our concert halls, or are they? So this looks at strength of ticket sales or percent of ticket sales sold each week leading up to a performance from 12 weeks out. The green line represents 2024's averages, and the purple line represents 2019's averages for North American Performing Arts Centers. So, if there, what's interesting is looking here in the last week, actually more last minute buying happened pre-pandemic versus post. And in 2024, this interesting something about, actually, the last time we looked at it, these lines were almost identical. So this would have been 2023 data. So here in 2024, we're actually seeing some interesting, a little bit of growth or difference in sort of 4, 3, 2 weeks out of people buying with more strength at that period of time than pre-pandemic. So are people buying later? The data would say not, and actually saying that month out is actually proving to be a really important, always is important, but even more people buying at that point versus pre-pandemic across the board for genres. Did that also happen at North American Orchestras? Super interesting, about the same. A little less length of time of growth in those earlier sort of 5 to 2 weeks out, but still for orchestras that 3, 4, 3, somewhere in that window, more ticket sales happening than pre-pandemic and actually less happening at the very last minute. So I think people have always bought late. It just we're seeing some slight shifts, but we're not seeing significant data to show, or data at all showing that people are buying later than pre-pandemic. Okay, what's going on with subscriptions and memberships? Same structure, not just revenue, but revenue in units across our sector. 37% up in revenue, 10% up in units. Excuse me, just a little water always helps. Excuse me. And then that's the numbers that compares back to. And then if we look at this at orchestras, even more strength. So sector-wide, and then orchestras up 43% with revenue in units, not packages, units, the number of tickets within a package, up 13%. Super interesting. What's going on? That's the numbers it relates back to. And then from the month-by-month comparisons. Excuse me. Thank you. So looking at this, we're looking again, is green bar outpacing purple? And is blue line outpacing yellow? Pretty consistently across the board for our sector writ large, especially starting in May. And then, from May on, every month was ahead. But in the orchestra sector, starting all the way in March, both units and revenue ahead. So one aha here might be, gosh, people are like leaning back into subscriptions. Super exciting to see that. And, might we go back to putting subscriptions on sale a little earlier? March looked like a good time to do that. Maybe we lean back into February. From our perspective, the longer you have to sell, the more you will sell. So good spoonfuls of confidence coming out of this data as well. So some other things that are driving this resurgence, we looked at how often folks are coming to see performances. So this looks at 2019 in the purple, 2024 in the green. And we looked at how, over the course of the season, what percentage of people were coming once, how many people came 2 to 3 times, how many people came 4 to 5 times, and how many people came 6 or more times. So across the sector, what you're seeing is more first-timers than pre-pandemic, but less people in the middle. So less multi-buyers happening at their 2 to 3 experience or 4 to 5. And then about the same people, like super fans are still super fans, and they're coming with the same amount of regularity across the sector. When we look at orchestras, really interesting, about the same amount of first timers, but we're doing something good here on the 2 to 3 side of getting people to come back with some more regularity. So this is not only a good health stat for this moment in time, but going back to our donation discussion from earlier, more multi-buying sets us up more effectively for donation behavior. So interesting to see that. And then orchestra superfans are leaning in and being even more super fanny than they were. So there's people who come 6 or more times. They're coming even more frequently coming out of the pandemic. So interesting strength there. The people who love orchestras and want to come with even more regularity. So some strength there to build on. Okay, so what's going on with donations? Let's dive into that a little more as well. So this is across the sector, revenue down 14%, units up 6%, 2024 versus 2019, the comparison data right there. At orchestras, revenue down 14%, but units up 18. So actually, we're getting more donors in the door, but because the revenue is down about the same, but we're getting more units in gifts, our average gift size is smaller. So this could speak to actually a potential turnaround for us with some strength coming down the pipe. If we're getting more people in the door, they're probably at the earlier stages of their giving. So that could be skewing the gift size down. But that gives us the potential to say, we've got a big pool of people to cultivate and migrate up to become more connected donors with us. So let's not let those people, let's be really mindful about the renewal rates of donors and being mindful of what is our plan to move them up and upgrade their donation along the way. So there's the specificity of the numbers there. Let's look at the month by month comparisons. Again, here is green outpacing purple and is blue outpacing yellow. Uh, some interesting ahas earlier part of the season or earlier part of the year in 2024, more purple outpacing green. But then later in the year, I think August onward, a lot more green outpacing purple. And then, looking for blue to outpace yellow. It was getting pretty close, but then actually a little bit of pullback in average gift sizes at the end of the year. What did that look like on the orchestra side? Something really interesting and different. Looking at units, pretty consistently up. So from March on, units, number of gifts were outpacing pre-pandemic amounts. But then the average gift size kind of all over the place. But some areas of strength to look at. Blue got higher in December than pre-pandemic amounts. So look at that spike up. That's a really interesting and good encouraging piece. And then look at what happened at end of June. So for many folks, that could be end of fiscal year. So we talked about the strategy of these key pillars of time, end of calendar year, end of fiscal year, subscription add-on. Are we maximizing giving at those months? And this looks like there's some energy happening there. So if you're one of those ones who had similar results than this is showing, congratulations. And think about how you maximize those key pillars in time. Okay, so a couple of things just to get us wrapped up. We said we'd look back at 2024 and then think about 2025 strength. And we've been talking a bit about that already with tactics and strategies around trying to grow multi-buying behavior and getting our donations to go up. But what were some of the favorite things on our list? I'm going to use holiday for a second longer. My favorite things, whiskers on kittens, all that kind of good stuff. What were some of my favorite things or TRG's favorite things in 2024 to bring over into 2025? So RFMG, absolutely thinking about growing, not just folks participating, but is their revenue increasing? Is their frequency increasing? We just talked about multi-behavior a whole lot. Is their monetary investment growing? And it's just their overall participation. Are they adding more things on? Are they going to not only see a concert, but are they participating with a donor event, or are they buying something at the concession stand? All that growth of participation is really helpful. Also being really mindful of the patron experience. Someone asked earlier about those generational shifts, and we see this across the board that it's not just the concert itself, but people want to feel that the whole experience is easy. They see themselves in, someone is there to help them along the way. So this is from our friends at the Pacific Symphony, being really thoughtful about, being personalized and helping people understand what's going to happen pre-concert, what's going to happen at the concert, really trying to manage expectation. And hey, this concert is sold out. If you can't use your ticket, donate it back. So we can get more people in and we can think about growing donation behavior at the same time. This is not from the symphony world, but a really interesting something from our friends at Boston Ballet. These were cards that were left on people's seats. And the second paragraph is so interesting. At intermission, we invite you to explore the warm-up in the lower lobby where you can have fun taking photos and getting to know the ballet better. So you just heard me talk about the G and RFMG, the growth. This is one of those examples. Have people participate in more ways. So how you can leverage your lobby experience for both fun and connectivity at the same time. More of that in 2025. Absolutely. I love the visual on the front of this card. One of the interesting things we're also noticing and are seeing strength going into 2025 is getting our lapsed folks back. We are seeing some heat and strength around that. So, Caitlin, we miss you in that visual. So funny. Actually, we've tried this strategy many times with having someone's first name big and bold on the front of a postcard, and it goes over well. People get tickled seeing it. Make it even bigger if you can, and welcome people to come back. And think about welcoming back or participation in new ways. One of the areas of orchestras we see getting a lot of strength out of leaning into membership is the Arkansas Symphony. They have a membership program, $9 a month. You get access to seats as long as it's available. And not only have they developed that kind of program, but they are using it as their next offer to their first-time single ticket buyers. So they have tried what many of you have done, we've done as a sector, the killer offer, trying to get people to come back with a deep discount. They're trying out that second offer of, hey, for only $9, you could come again whenever you want. So it's a good deal, and it gets that person on a trajectory of coming multiple times in the season. And they're seeing more people actually take advantage of that offer. 11% in 2024 versus the 9% they got a participation using the killer offer strategy in 2023. So one thing to kind of wrap us up is the value of subscriptions. I've been sharing this over the course of the year, this stat to say not just in the performing arts, but writ large in the consumer industry, people are committing more and in interesting ways. So let's really be mindful about having enticing pathways that allow people to find their way in to participating with us, not just once, but multiple times over the course of the season. And to leave you with this, as Valentine's Day is right around the corner, is love the ones you're with. So I'll say this, I don't mean it exactly this way, but it's the best way I can come up to say it is you don't need any more first-time single ticket buyers. It's actually not true. You do need them, but where we as a sector could, if we made one big change in 2025, it would be to get more repeat attendance. We bring in lots of new people all the time, and the biggest challenge we face is not getting them back with regularity. We don't have strong enough retention on that. So find ways to create that connectivity and love the ones you already have in your communities of attendees and whatnot, and how to have those second experiences. Having a great experience overall makes a difference, inviting them back, all that kind of good stuff. So if you want to puzzle through any of this together, I always offer an hour of free consulting and conversation. There's no obligation behind that. So I'll leave this QR code up for a second. As Boran mentioned, we will also share the recording and this deck after our time together today. So you'll get this QR code in that as well. But like I said, I'll leave it up for a second longer in case folks want to take it and book some time. But I will give it a second more and then we'll stop the share and see what kind of additional questions or inspirations we had out of the data. So I will stop that to make it easier to see each other. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Indeed.
Eric. I'm always just mesmerized by the amount of information that you so skillfully deliver in such a short time. It's really an inspiration. I want to be able to do that someday.
There were 60 slides. So collectively, we got through 60 slides together in 40 minutes. It's so I appreciate all the listening and the questions along the way. So thank you for that.
So we do have a question that came in during the presentation. I think it was specifically when you had your slide up about donation amounts in orchestras. It's from Hannah Choi, and she's asking, do you know what happened in July to September pre-COVID in donation world?
Let me pull that back up because I think that will be helpful. And Hannah, great to see you. I'm so glad you're here. It's always so wonderful to get to connect with you. So let's pull the deck back up. So let's get in front of that again to make sure we are answering that in all the best ways. So orchestras, we did individual giving. So we are looking at gifts month by month in the orchestra sector in 2019. And Boran, remind me, the question was what happened in August and September because it looks like green was,
July to September pre-COVID. Yeah.
oh, in terms of this yellow line that was going on, right? Yeah. I think what this was, why it's so much higher, is this relates back to end of calendar year giving. And, it's different at every organization. So we see in there's some folks who it's not end of calendar year, I apologize, end of fiscal year. So some organizations' fiscal years, not everybody's, but happen at various times over the course of the summer. So we see that lift in June here, and it's just shifted a little bit, but I think it's driven by campaigns that were related to end of fiscal year. Particularly North America does, or US has a lot of orchestras that have June, July, and August end of fiscal year efforts. So really leaning in. It might not seem like the most sparkly time to ask someone to give, but when we can ground our asks in key moments in our timeline, people react off of that. So that ability to say end of fiscal year or end of the season, you could think of it that way. Like if you have a calendar fiscal year, like end of calendar fiscal year, end of season, if you run, fall through the spring, early summer, could say, hey, we're wrapping up. Here's some of the impacts we had as we plan for next year. Giving at this time of year is really important. So those pillars of timeline. So I think, Hannah, it's probably we just pointed people in that direction and asked them to give at that time. I'll keep this up for a moment longer in case there's any clarifying questions around that or other slides we might want to bring up.
Yeah, and I mean, had this slide been only about Canadian orchestras, I would have also pointed out that Canada helps promotes the Great Canadian Giving Challenge in June, which is to encourage encourage giving in June. We at Orchestras Canada, we started doing an additional fundraising campaign during that time. So the graph does look like that a little bit for us as well, like just those gifts coming in, going up in the month of June.
Yeah, and even think it's such a good point even to around Giving Tuesday or like creating moments that feel special for giving. And like we have those pre-built into our seasons because of for ticketing, like we're going on sale with our subscription, the season's opening, all those good things. How do we build more of those um, moments of special for donation asks? Make sure they're mission driven and make sense, but can be really helpful. So, Boran, really appreciate you sharing that.
And we have a couple of comments in the chat about the summer. So from Sarah Bullock, she says that summer opportunity, single ticket on sale campaign, uh,
Yes.
something that can happen. And then we have another comment from Catherine Carlton, who is our executive director, assuming it's a combination of fiscal year end and campaign responses and gifts that came in with subscription renewals? Question mark.
Could be that. Yeah. I mean, that can be lifts up there as well. Indeed. And it's, to say on, I think it was that point about summer single ticket sales. Like one thing we've noticed is um, Christmas in July sales have gotten more, they've been popular, but are getting even more strength than before. So thinking about your holiday buyers, they may not come to lots of other things, but a lot of them commit annually to coming to that kind of programming. So treating them like they're valuable and think of them through the lens of renewing, like renewing that activity can be done over the summer, like Christmas in July. People really like that. We have actually even seen orchestras where they may say, hey, this our lobby's going to be open in July and we're going to play some holiday music and there might even be cookies available in July. So leaning into that kind of behavior can be real. People love a celebration. So making important times and entertaining times for people to want to participate goes a long way. We're in the business of show, so let's do what we do so well with those. So
Yeah, maybe we need the Christmas in July album from Mariah Carey.
yeah, so if there's a lot of orchestra people, we could do a letter writing campaign to her. Perhaps we'll get that.
Okay, so as of now, I see no other questions in the chat. So I just want to say thank you so much, Eric, for this very insightful session as usual. I thank everyone who attended this webinar today, and also a big round of applause and appreciation for our simultaneous interpreter, Danielle Allard. Resources from this
Absolutely.
session. As we have said, we will be including a recording and a slide deck, and they will be posted on the resources section of our website in the coming days. Stay tuned for more information updates about the Arts and Culture Benchmark through our newsletter. I highly encourage you to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, as well as on our website and social media. So with this, I look forward to seeing you again, Eric, and I wish everyone a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here.